All right, I think we can go ahead and get started here. Thanks again for joining. This is our webinar on automatic change detection with our feature Lens Lookout. I'm Katie Tyler, and I'll be your host today. I work on customer success for Lens at Upstream Tech, and later we'll be joined by the other person on the customer success team, Allison, who will help us with the Q&A portion. So I'll be giving you a brief overview on Lens Lookout, and we'll save about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for questions. So again, you can drop those on the right-hand side. There should be a question box for you to drop those in. So for our agenda today, I just did a quick intro, and I know a lot of the folks on the call are current Lens users. There might be some newer folks though, so I'll do a super brief overview on what Lens is, and then we'll spend most of the time actually in Lens, and I'll show you how Lens Lookout can be used to do passive monitoring for you. And hopefully I'll have a good variety of use case examples for you so you can think about how Lens Lookout might be valuable to your workflow regardless of your use case. And then, like I mentioned, we'll have some time at the end for questions. So just as a high-level overview of what Lens is our remote monitoring platform here at Upstream Tech, and we really aim to make remote monitoring easy. You don't need to be a GIS expert to use it, really user-friendly. It's a web-based application, and you can access lots of different types of satellite and aerial imagery and data via Lens. We automatically pull in lots of publicly available data sets, and we also partner with commercial partners to bring in their imagery and data as well. And in addition to accessing satellite and aerial data and imagery, you can also use Lens really as your tool for monitoring and reporting and analysis. So you can view your property, you can annotate changes, you can create these time series we're seeing on the screen here, save those in notes and reports, and really keep your workflow in this powerful tool. And the feature that we're really doing a deep dive on today is Lens Lookout that allows you to have automatic change detection. So this is configurable and customizable. We have different types of alerts pre-built and then customizable ones you can create yourself. So we can really monitor for a variety of potential risks or changes. And actually, we're going to have a quick poll to see if there's specific types of changes that folks are most interested in learning about. So we'll have that quick poll before I really dive into Lens here. And we'll see if we can publish it. It is launching now. Okay, great. So we'll give everyone a minute maybe to respond to this. All right, I'm seeing some answers for vegetation drop, fire, parcel ownership. Great. Okay, great spread. Flooding too. Awesome. So seeing the whole gamut, vegetation drop is maybe edging out, or parcel ownership now. That's great. I'll cover all of these examples in the next 20 minutes or so. I'll spend a good amount of time on vegetation drop, but we'll definitely cover parcel ownership. It's great to see so many folks are interested in that. All right, let me go ahead and change my screen share to Lens here. So I have a bunch of examples queued up, and we're going to talk about the different ways that Lens Lookout can help you and your workflow. So here we are in Lens. We're looking at a specific property. In this case, this is a wind farm. And we see on the left-hand side, we have these different panels where we can look at commercial imagery options, look at notes that we've made on this property or create new ones. But we're going to spend most of the time today down in this lookout pane. And this is where lookouts live, where new change alerts will come in. And at the top here, we can see this option to create a custom policy. I'm going to talk about that a bit more towards the end. And then we see these two ones at the top here with these icons are pre-built. So if you're a standard or enterprise Lens customer, you will see those in any of your properties. I'm going to talk about unseasonal vegetation drop first. This is a really powerful pre-built tool we have, and it looks at vegetation data from Sentinel-2. So we're currently looking at true color data from Sentinel-2. This is publicly available data that will automatically load for your property. And the great thing about Sentinel-2, this is a satellite from ESA, it is publicly available and it has a global revisit day of about every 5 days. So we can see here, we're seeing really frequent sensings, which makes it really valuable for automatic change detection because we're getting frequent updates. And then we have true color from this satellite, which is what we're viewing here, but we can also look at all sorts of remote sensing indices that serve as proxies and measurements of phenomena going on the ground. So vegetation is one of those. If you're familiar with remote sensing, this is NDVI, Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. The important thing to know is that where we have healthy vegetation, we'll have higher values shown in darker green. Where we have maybe stressed vegetation, we'll have more yellow values, more middling values. And then where we have bare ground or water, no vegetation, we'll see these really low values in white. So what this alert does is it looks at new sensings from Sentinel-2, and it looks at now compared to a year ago. We look at year over year to account for seasonal changes. Typically, we'll have higher values in the summer and lower in the winter, and we want to limit the noise related to that. So we'll look at year over year, and if we have sustained drop this year compared to last year, we'll draw a shape around that area and point you to that area of change. So here we can see an example. We'll automatically pull in the before and after. So we have this change occurred in 2024, and we're seeing what this area looked like in 2023. Some best practices for looking at any of these types of alerts is I always like to look at true color as well. This is a pretty clear example where it looks like this is a human-made shape. But sometimes, because these are automatic, we'll get some cloud that sneaks in. We do mask out clouds, but sometimes they still make it through. Or in really mountainous terrain, there can be shadows. So it's always good to check the true color. And this can also just help contextualize that we were really seeing, vegetated, undisturbed ground before, and now we're seeing this new road here, this bare ground. And in this case, this is a wind farm, so these are likely spots where wind turbines will go. But I wanted to show this as an example to illustrate whether you're interested in new infrastructure or maybe you have a lot of forests in your portfolio and you want to monitor for logging. This can really show that lookouts can pick up small areas, including roads. And we've even had cases where customers have noticed a new logging road that wasn't meant to be there, and they've been able to stop the logging before it was completed by getting notified about the new road from Lookout. All right, I'm going to show a couple more examples of vegetation drop lookouts and some additional workflows that you can do in Lens to find out more information. So here we have a lookout from fall of 2024. We see our before and after. So before, we're seeing, this looks like maybe it's a trail on this property. And then after, we're still seeing that trail, but we're seeing this new stripe of low vegetation values. So again, I'm going to check true color just to contextualize what I'm seeing here. And we can see that we're seeing, vegetated ground in this area near this trail beforehand. And now we're seeing this new stripe of what looks to be bare ground or disturbed earth. So this is a case where Sentinel-2 is great. It's publicly available. It's coming in. We get those frequent sensings, but it is 10-meter resolution. So each of these pixels is 10 meters by 10 meters, which makes this a little bit blurry. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on here. And so that's where coming to the order pane can be really helpful. Let's say I want to investigate this change further and see what's going on here. I can actually just order imagery. I'm being a little computer's getting a little laggy here. Okay, I can just order imagery for this specific area where that change occurred. I don't need imagery for the entire property. And I can scroll back. This change occurred in last fall. So let me scroll back to last fall. I see a few options here. And actually this one, I know my colleague already ordered this because he was investigating this change closer to when this lookout first came in. So I'm going to click right on this and it'll take me to that image. And so I can zoom in here and really see in greater detail, this looks like a landslide. Maybe there was some erosion from a severe precipitation event. And we can see in better detail, maybe where we had some road or trail disturbance. And so maybe I need to notify folks that we need to do maintenance on the ground here. Or this just really helps me get a clearer picture of the change that has happened. And we can see where my colleague Jake has already left a note here with these images to document this change that we first were notified about through Lens Lookout. All right, one more vegetation job example here. So like I mentioned with forestry, if you're interested in monitoring, if you have forests that you want to make sure aren't being cleared, or you want to make sure that the logging is in line with what's expected. Here we have an example where we're notified about a vegetation drop, and it looks like we have some trees being cleared. This is a good example where we can see these red outlines aren't always perfect, and that's fine. It is automatically drawn. So I always recommend using our human eyes to assess where the change is, but it really points us in the right direction. And here again, I'll look at the true color to compare, to see that difference from trees to bare ground. Have my images load here. So we go from this really, really dark green from trees to this very visible bare ground. Now, this is a pretty recent alert, just about a month ago. So maybe I want to really pinpoint when this happened. And that's where using Lookout in conjunction with analysis can be really powerful. So I can come to analysis and draw a shape around this area to, I'm just going to do it really roughly here. So I can say, let's look at the vegetation data over the past 2 years, because I know this happened at least within the last year. And let's get that time series and see when this change occurred. So I can see here pretty steady vegetation, and then just quite recently, I see this steep drop. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and I can actually cursor over here, see the exact value. I can click right on this dot to see what the data looked like at that time. So at the end of March, we're seeing this was still undisturbed. Maybe we just have this road here. If I click through to early April, I'm seeing that this had started, the logging had started. And if I shift click, I can actually enter compare mode and see both these images side by side. And so I can see that really this logging event occurred just in the first half of April. So now if I want to, I can put a note here. So this was identified by Lookout, and it occurred early April. So I can fix my typo and create this note. And then this note will now be saved in my notes pane, where I have it now for record keeping. Other colleagues can come in and click on it and see what I was looking at. I could export this as a report. So just another workflow where we can start with the Lookout and then dig further with some of the other tools in Lens. All right, that pretty much covers my examples of vegetation drop. And next we're going to look at parcel ownership change, which I know a lot of folks on the call are interested in. So here we have an example. Parcel owner changes are our other pre-built Lookout. So again, if you are a standard or enterprise customer in Lens and you add any property in the US, you'll automatically see this option in the lookouts pane, so you can toggle that on for your property. And this is in partnership with Regrid. We partner with them to pull in their data. They have great data, great tax parcel data across the United States. And so our alert will look at that data, and as updates and changes are made, we will notify you. We'll create an alert here if the owner field has changed. So here we can see I've clicked on this example where the owner name used to be General Mills, and then it changed to Rodale Institute. So we'll see this information, and then we'll see in red here the location of that tax parcel in relation to our property boundaries. I can also click on our overlays and toggle on that parcel data just to get some more information here. I can cursor over to see that, yes, now the current owner is still Rodale Institute. I can see also over here, these are both also Rodale Institute. So I can get some more context by looking at all of that. And we'll see some of these other alerts are for those next parcels over where it looks like the ownership of these few parcels all changed around the same time. So this can be really helpful. Curious to learn more about the folks on the call, what your use case is for this, but I know landowner relations are a really important part of a lot of folks' workflow using Lens. And so it can be really valuable to know when that landowner changes and know when and who you need to be reaching out to someone new who overlaps with your properties or easements. Awesome. So these ones are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to move on to some of the custom ones, but again, feel free to drop those questions if you have more questions on either of these pre-built ones in the chat. Okay, so I've mentioned that we have those pre-built ones, and then you may have noticed in some of the different tabs I've been moving through that we have some different ones below those two. And these are custom ones that we've created in our demo org. And you can create your own custom lookouts to be tailored to specific events or changes that you're concerned with. One of those being flooding. So here I've created a custom lookout policy to look out for flooding. And we can see I'm looking at this one from December. If I come and click the plus sign here, it will automatically add the sensing before to my compare mode view. And we can see how the water level was much lower before this event, and then the water level really expanded, and we got this lookout alert. Similarly, if I click on this one, we'll see this property seems to have pretty rapidly fluctuating water levels. So I'm seeing a few in quick succession events where the water level was below the thresholds for my alert and then above it. And we can take a look at exactly what this lookout policy looks like that I created. So I had known that there was frequent flooding on this property, and I wanted to investigate or be notified when there were flooding events. So I went and created this policy, and I can come back and view it and see what thresholds I set. So I gave it the name flooding, and then we can create policies on pretty much any data layer in Lens that you've added from the Lens library to your portfolio. So here we're looking at surface water. And then for this one, I know that high values indicate water and low values indicate dry ground. So I want to know when there are values on my property above 0.2 indicating there's a presence of water here. And for this property, I want to know when at least 80% of my property is water, because usually at least a good half of it is already covered in water. Now, this number of scenes is something we can customize to say how many sensings in a row need to fit these criteria above before I'm alerted. Typically for flooding, we want to keep this low at 1 because it's a pretty spiky event, and we want to get notified right away. If you're only interested in like extreme sustained flooding, maybe we could update this to 2 sensings. But generally for flooding, I'll leave this at 1. And then we can see this property is the only one in this portfolio currently enrolled. But if we wanted, we could add others or add all properties from this portfolio. And so then once we've turned that on, as there's new sensings from Sentinel-2, it will keep screening for those criteria and let us know if there's a new flooding event. I have one more example for flooding. Again, we're seeing this is a case where the river doesn't take up as much of the property as a baseline. So this is a case where the criteria are slightly different, and this is where it can be helpful to think about your specific properties and what you're looking out for and what their baselines are normally. And the customer success team is always happy to help you think those things through. But here we can see I have pretty similar criteria above about 0.2, 0.25. So when we have high values indicating water. But in this case, my baseline for how much water is on this property is much lower. So I want to be notified even if more than 5% of my property is water here. And so again, we can see an example where we go from the more baseline water levels in early April here. We see this much thinner river, and then we see that flood to look like a much larger river here. So here that baseline is just a little bit different because the footprint of water normally is a bit lower relative to the rest of the property. All right, I think I have two more custom examples. So fire, I think, is a really valuable and common one that folks are interested in. We want to know when there's new fire activity on the property, and vegetation drop will sometimes pick that up too. But it can be helpful to be notified when it's specifically due to fire activity. So here we have an example where in August, we were notified that there is fire going on this property. Again, I'm going to click that plus sign to look at the sensing before. And I'll wait for this to load here. And I'll look at, we should see from the sensing before to the next sensing, a big spike from low values to high values. And I'm going to just refresh this. Sometimes my screen sharing struggles a little bit. All right, so we're seeing our property come in here, our lookout. Okay, we got these high values here. So we're seeing this really high value from our property here. And then the time before, we're seeing really low values going to really high values. So it looks like there was no indication of fire activity on the 3rd of August. And then 5 days later, we have these really high values indicating recently burned or actively burning areas. And then we can actually see just about a month or two later, we got another alert, and we can see here, these values are still looking high. They've maybe gone down, indicating this isn't as recently burned. But then up here, we're seeing it looks like there's additional, maybe related fire activity that's newly encroaching on our property. Now, when we're deciding to create a new alert, it's really helpful, or we need to figure out where to set our thresholds. And one tool in Lens that can be really helpful for that is this pixel info tool. So if I click on this, this will let us see the exact value for specific pixels as I cursor over them. So here we're seeing in these recently burned areas, we're mostly seeing values in the 0.3s, some a little bit lower than that. In these areas out here where we don't have fire, we're seeing values much closer to 0. And then up here where we have really high recently burned activity, we're seeing values pretty much at 0.4. So this is helpful. We mostly care about values 0.4, even 0.3, maybe 0.2 something, but we don't need to be notified when there are values close to 0. So we can use that information and come and create a custom lookout. So I'm going to call this our fire test. I'll select the data set I want to screen. So for this case, I'm looking at burn index from Sentinel-2. And then I'll set this at 0.3. So when we get values above 0.3, I want to be notified. And in this case, I'm going to bring this way down to like 3%. I want to know even if just a small portion of my property is showing signs of fire. Again, For fire, often we want to keep this just at 1. We want to be notified quite quickly, but maybe if we're interested in more of a sustained event or we want to limit noise, we can increase this number of scenes. So here I can click next. I could enroll all properties in this portfolio in this alert, or specifically search for other ones. If I hit finish here, it will show up in my lookout pane, and I can toggle this on and off for this specific property. I'm going to look at one more fun example here of a custom alert. So this is a ski mountain, and maybe I want to know when I can go skiing. I want to know when there's snow on this mountain. So here I've created a lookout to notify me when the snow index values are high, indicating a presence of snow. And even just if 10% is covered, because that's about the amount that the actual ski trails take up on this property. So here we can see an example where we got notified of the first snowfall of the past winter. We can see this looks nice and snowy. This gray area here is clouds being masked out. And again, I can look at this in true color to see that comparison of the before and after, where we have mostly no snow, just a few clouds there. And then we have some clouds here and snow across the ski mountain. Now this one's kind of a fun and silly example, but we can think about, maybe I have a lot of properties spread out through a wide area, and maybe I actually want to know once there's no more snow on my properties for the year, because I want to know when I can start planning for field visits, or when I can start thinking about looking at the order pane for recent commercial high-res imagery that doesn't have snow in it. So lots of different ways we can apply this tool. We have lots of different data. You can use it for chlorophyll if you're looking at monitoring algal blooms in bodies of water. Lots of different ways to apply this. So this is mostly an example to think about how we can use this in more creative ways. All right, I think that wraps up my demo portion, and I will open it up to questions. I'll invite Allison to join me here, and we can maybe come here, and I can hop back into screen sharing Lens as we need, as questions come up.
Great, thanks, Katie. And for folks, just a reminder, you should be able to put in questions either in a box on the right hand of your screen, or by opening it up in the top right of your screen, there should be a little button. So we already have some questions coming in, which is awesome. So Katie, I'll just read some off to you and then let you take them. So starting off here, going back to parcel ownership changes, the question is there a way to set an alert for ownership changes of neighboring parcels, or which parcels are included in that change?
Great question. So by default, the property you upload to Lens, any property that overlaps with any parcel, that overlaps with your property at all, even if it's just a sliver, will automatically be included in that screening for alerts. And then there are ways where we can think about looking at bordering parcels. One way is to upload a buffer area of your property to Lens and turn on lookout alerts, parcel owner change alerts for that buffer area.
Great, thanks. Okay, a more general question. Is there a minimum size to trigger an alert?
Yeah, great question. So for the unseasonal vegetation drop, the one that's pre-built, the minimum size is 5 pixels of Sentinel-2 data, which is 500 square meters, or I believe about 0.1 acres. So a quite small area. It can pick up even a new structure being built, typically, as long as that's not under the cover of canopy, but it can pick up pretty small areas. And then for those custom ones I was looking at, those you can set that percentage of your property down to a fractional percent. So again, pretty small. And the parcel owner changes, there's not really a minimum. It's just whatever the smallest tax parcel is on your property.
Great. I'm going to try to group some of these together into themes. So we've got another question just about in general. Is there a way to adjust alerts after you set them up? Where do the notifications go? Are they just in Lens, or is there another way to see them?
Yes, great question. Let me close out of when my computer was struggling, some of these sad tabs. Okay, so once we've created a custom lookout here, we can always come back to view and edit it. So maybe this is too noisy and I want to adjust this slider to be higher or bring this percentage up or these number of scenes up. So I can always change that. And if I exit out, it won't save those changes. But if I hit next, I can save those changes. And then you'll always see these alerts here. And from the portfolio view in Lens, it's really nice. You can quickly see which properties have unscreened alerts that I want to look at. And also there is a way where you can get notified via email. So you'll get new changes straight to your inbox if you want to be notified that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Going back to a question you answered earlier about a minimum size for alerts, we got another question. And is there a maximum size for an alert?
Great question. No maximum size threshold. The only thing currently in Lens is that we don't allow for upload of properties that are larger than 500,000 acres, mainly because we find that above that size, there's not great coverage in one shot from satellite imagery, and the monitoring workflow becomes a little bit more challenging, but you can easily split up properties into kind of quadrants if it's larger than that. But yeah, no maximum threshold.
Great, thanks. All right, next question. This person's interested in how Lens Lookout performs in more dynamic ecosystems like wetlands or grasslands where change is more frequent, but not always significant. Any thoughts you have on balancing that sensitivity with reliability?
This is a great question. And typically for all of these automatic change alerts, we're always trying to balance noise and signal. And so we want to capture the true changes without adding too much noise. I will say for the pre-built vegetation drop, for some areas, you will get a little bit more noise due to natural variation. So for instance, in a wetland, if you have lots of changing water levels, you might get some alerts from this spring was a really wet spring compared to last year. And so we're seeing higher water levels, which are causing there to be lower vegetation values. But sometimes that's useful information to know about anyways. Or similarly, in rangeland, grassland type ecosystems, we might get some more noise if there's a dry year and just the grassland is largely quite dry compared to a previous year when it was more green. So again, sometimes that's useful to know about. But yeah, we're always thinking about, are there new alerts and ways we can, with the custom ones, we can think about where we set those thresholds and can we tailor that more to the specific ecosystem.
And just to piggyback on that, if you're a current customer with Lens, Katie and I are always happy to hop on a call with you and look through data together and help you figure out how to address those trickier ecosystems and get alerts
yes,
that are helpful. All right, Katie, I've got a couple questions that are related, and they might be actually helpful for us to look at the Lens library together. So the first one is, are the vegetation change and water level change alerts based on Sentinel-2 imagery? And then the second question that's related is, can lookouts also use SAR data?
Awesome. Yeah, so these are great questions. So the pre-built one, the on-seasonal vegetation drop, that is based off of Sentinel-2 data, vegetation data. The ones I was showing you are largely using Sentinel-2, but you can create your own custom ones off of any of this data pretty much here in the Lens library. So, and one of the few radar-based data layers we have in Lens currently is surface water from Sentinel-1. And so this can be valuable if you have lots of cloud cover or canopy cover. The radar can help sort of look through that a little bit better. But for now, that's the only radar-based data layer. And mostly we see that lookouts built off of Sentinel-2 because it's the most like freely available, frequently updating data source. But again, you can always come and browse and see other data layers that are available to create custom lookout policies on.
Great. And just in case folks aren't familiar with the Lens library, like 99% of these are included with the Lens subscription. You can use them in lookout policies and just for analyzing change in general. And Katie, I can see you demoed how to add them. So really easy to add, and then Lens will process in all of the data for you for those areas in the portfolio.
Yeah, great call out, Allison.
All right, I think we have about time for 2 more questions. So first one, beyond what we showed, or maybe if we can elaborate on what we showed, Katie, do we have suggestions to detect relatively small size changes that indicate new structures like reflective surfaces such as a roof?
Yeah, this is a great question again. So basically, I would say for small changes like that, vegetation drop will be the best bet. It's quite good at picking up on new structures, new construction. And I found it to be just like the best in terms of signal to noise. And we can think about like, if there's specific things you're concerned about, we can think about what is the surrounding area and are we going to get noise from other certain types of data sets. We also have explored adding some things like we have a built-up index, which tries to isolate things like reflective roofs. I've honestly found that the vegetation drop alert is as good, if not better, than this layer. But we are constantly trying to think about, can we isolate those new structures? So we're always exploring, like, are there new data sets we can add? Or are we able to use AI to do some more change detection built off of true color? So always looking to improve and expand that. So keep your eye out for product updates in the future.
Thank you. All right, last question. How much does it cost to order high resolution true color imagery? And are you told the cost before you place the order?
Yes, great question. So in the order pane here, when we're browsing, you will always see the cost beforehand. The cost ranges from about 4 cents an acre and up. And you'll see, if I come to preview here, I'll see the price per acre and then also the price to order it for this whole property. So I'll always get that preview very clearly on what my price is. And so I'll know before I purchase. And again, we do have this partial order tool where if I just wanted to zoom in to a specific portion, I could just pay for that subset to save money. So we make it really easy to track that. And you can always also in your account view like your order history to see what you've spent over the current contract period.
Perfect. I think we're going to wrap it up here with our Q&A. And if you have other questions that you think of moving forward or just want to chat in general, please reach out to us at lens@upstream.tech. And we have a link in the top right corner where you can learn some more about Lens Lookout as well. But Katie, I'll pass it back to you to wrap up.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining. Like Allison said, you can reach out with questions to lens@upstream.tech. Feel free to reach out with questions if you're a Lens user. We're happy to brainstorm what lookouts might be most relevant for you. If you're not a Lens user and you have more questions, totally feel free to reach out as well. Both Allison and I monitor that inbox, so we should respond to your questions pretty quickly. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining, and don't hesitate to reach out.